above. We're here to listen, understand, and address the unique needs of you and your community as we age. Our goal is to enrich your experience by expanding our local activities, providing opportunities for you to discover and engage with all that life has to offer right here in your own community and virtually. As we journey through today's event, we invite you to consider joining our dedicated team of AARP volunteers. It's a chance to make a meaningful impact and help us better serve those 50 plus across the nation. Connect with us and be a part of this vibrant movement toward positive change. Welcome, and let's make this event both fun and transformative.
Good morning. Welcome to AARP Illinois' special virtual event. I'm Teresa Jones, Associate State Director, and I'm here with Courtney Hedderman, Senior Associate Director of Advocacy and Outreach. And we are your fraud-fighting fraudlets. We are thrilled to be bringing the latest on frauds and scams and ultimately arming you with the information you need for prevention and reporting if you're ever a victim. This is the first event of this series, and we're happy you're here today. And we look forward to having you join us every month. We're excited to bring this month's topic, AARP's Fraud Watch Network. We're honored to be joined by Seth Boffeli, Senior Advisor of the Fraud Prevention Program at AARP. Welcome, Seth.
Hey, it's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
We're glad that you could make it. So now let's get started with our discussion. But before we do, I'd like to remind our Facebook and our YouTube viewers, that you can ask questions and share your comments in the social media feeds. We'll do our best to address as many of your questions as possible during this conversation. But to kick things off, let's start with some questions. Our first question for you, Seth. Can you tell us what the Fraud Watch Network is and what it does?
Yeah, absolutely, Teresa. So as many people know, AARP does a lot of things. And one of the things that we really are known for is helping people plan and save for retirement, helping them understand Social Security and maximize their benefits. So a lot of our effort over the years has really gone into helping you build that nest egg so you can have the financial security that you need in retirement. And so part of having that security is making sure you hang on to it and you safeguard it. And unfortunately, as we all know, just from our own personal experiences, every single day we are under attack, all of us, everybody in America, from fraudsters. They're coming after us with text messages, with phone calls, with fraudulent emails. And so understanding that this is a nationwide epidemic, understanding that people of all ages are really faced with this challenge, AARP wanted to provide some information, some resources, some connections to help you understand the landscape, understand what some of these scams are and how to look out for them, because they never stop innovating, they never stop changing. Just because you might know how to stop all the scams today doesn't mean you're going to be equipped for the ones for next month or next year, because it really is these criminals are unfortunately very savvy, and they're using the latest technologies against us. And so we have to be as vigilant as we can be. And so opportunities like this to come talk to people in Illinois and help spread the word, not just about fraud prevention in general, but also what we're seeing in your state is a great opportunity. So thanks for hosting.
Thank you. Well, I got a little excited, Seth, just knowing that you were here and Courtney and we were going to be able to do this. I did say who you were, but can you just tell us a little bit about yourself so our audience knows why you're our expert?
Yeah, so actually, I grew up just a stone's throw from Illinois. I grew up in Dubuque, Iowa, just on the other side of the river. And over the course of my career, I kind of say I've circumnavigated the Midwest. I went from Illinois to Iowa to Wisconsin, and now I'm in Minnesota. But I still have spent so much time in Illinois and love your state so much. My role at AARP has gone from communications, where I worked in the Minnesota State office, to really kind of a communication/outreach role with the Fraud Watch Network for about the past 6 years.
All right. Well, I know I depend on you a lot when I have some fraud questions. And so we're really happy that you had the availability to join us today. I have another question before I turn it over to Courtney. Is the Fraud Watch Network only available to members?
Yeah, so that's another great thing. What we do, we do for all. That's the motto of Ethel Percy Anders, our founder. All of our resources are available for free on our website, aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork. You can get everything from, you can look up a map of your neighborhood and see what frauds have been or scams have been reported there. You can sign up for monthly or bi-monthly text alerts or email alerts. You can even listen to an award-winning podcast on fraud and crime. And so everything that we have available on there, it's not just available for people who are members or non-members, but it's available for people of all ages, because really, if you have a bank account or if you have, a credit card, you're a potential victim for these people.
Yeah, awesome. These are great resources, Seth. So thank you so much for sharing. But maybe we can dive in a little bit more into the fraud that people experience. And it does seem that older adults are more susceptible, or they experience maybe more fraud than others. And I'm kind of curious of what do you think that's true? And then if in fact it is true that they're more susceptible to being, ultimately scammed, why do you think that is?
So one of the things that's challenging in this line of work is that the vast majority of fraud and scams don't get reported. Some studies have shown that about less than 5% of all financial crimes get reported. So when we look at data like from the Federal Trade Commission or the FBI, that data is super alarming, but it really is just the tip of the iceberg. But what that data tells us is that about half of the reports that are filed with the Federal Trade Commission actually come from people under the age of 30 years old. So almost half of the frauds that are out there, or at least that we know of, are targeted at younger people. However, on average, they're losing a lot less than the older generation. And, kind of the answer to why is kind of intuitive. People who are in their 60s, 70s, 80s have worked their whole lives. They've saved, they have assets. So they have more money to lose. And I think just the fact that they have more money to lose means that older folks are always going to be kind of a higher target. But that by no means means that anyone is immune, because if you have $5, I guarantee you somebody's out there wanting to take it.
Trying to take it. Yep. That makes sense. Yeah, for sure. Well, so it obviously, though, it does seem, no matter, just like you're saying, it's really no matter what your age is, but obviously anybody in the situation of experiencing fraudulent practices and being scammed, it does seem that it's a higher rate than it ever was before 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And so I'm just curious what you think about that. Like, why is there more fraud and scams that exist now than ever before?
Yeah, so let's just go back 5 years ago. So looking at that FTC data let's just look at Illinois. So I was looking at this before we started. 5 years ago, 2019, in Illinois, there was about $55 million in reported losses to the state.
Wow.
That's a pretty big number. Last year, that number was $255 million.
Wow.
Oh, my
you've
gosh.
gone up 5 times in 5 years. So now what happened between 2019 and here? Well, a pandemic happened. And really, COVID was like the perfect storm for these criminal scammers. That 2019 pre-COVID, the FTC reported $2 billion in nationwide losses. It was the most they had ever reported before. Last year, that number was 10 billion. So also nationally, we've gone up 5 times in 5 years. And the reality is that COVID changed so much about, it started off with things like fake PPE or fake
Mm-hmm.
hand sanitizer. A lot of these fake online scams, like government benefit scams, really skyrocketed in those first 2 years when people were, signing up for fraudulent like PPP loans or claiming unemployment benefits. And so if a scammer had your address and your social security number, they could claim unemployment benefits in your name. So we saw a lot of that. But really, as those programs have gone down, it's just continued. And I think one of the reasons is just COVID changed so much about how we operate on our daily lives. We order, groceries online. We do so much stuff online that we never did before. I can't even, used to be, in 2019, if a package came to my house, I knew exactly what it was and who it was for. Now I just walk by the front door and there's 2 boxes there, and I'm, kind of say, who ordered something, So there's things like, text messages from saying that they're from Amazon and there's a problem with your shipment. That wasn't a scam in 2019. That's a very prevalent scam right now because of how we changed it. And also, one of the really scourges right now is sort of bank imposter scams. Go back to 2019. Chances are, if you had to do business with your bank, you got in the car and drove down to your bank and went inside. Now, if you do that, they might look at you like you have a third eye, because everything is done. You can't even, it's hard to put a check, a physically check anywhere other than take a picture on your phone these days. And so these sophisticated banking scams will start with, we see this transaction. Did you buy a $3,000 TV? It comes on your text message. Click here if you didn't. So now the alarm bells are going off and I need to stop this. It says it's from my bank. It's the same phone number as my bank. I'm clicking on this link. Now I'm off on a trail where somebody will call me back who I think is the bank, but it's really a scammer. They're going to give me a website that looks like it's the bank. And so one of the real dangers here is, unlike, a credit card scam where you have fraudulent charges, you can call that credit card company and say, hey, I didn't order this, or this was fraud. They're getting you to authorize transfers out of your bank account and into the scammer's account. And when you go back and say, hey, wait, this is a scam, there's really no recourse because you authorized it. And, it doesn't matter, honestly, and this is really sad. And this is one of the things we're starting to work on from an advocacy standpoint. But because you authorized that transaction, even though it wasn't really you weren't talking to who you thought you were talking about, it's really hard to get that money back.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And this is not something we had talked about earlier, but I can attest to that. Just give you a real short story here. My brother had clicked on a link actually that said Amtrak. It was misspelled. He didn't pay attention to the spelling. And he only clicked on it because he was trying to get a ticket to go to Chicago. Well, the fraudsters got hold of it and they charged about $4,000 worth of tickets. Now, he called his bank immediately when he realized it, and they had no recourse for him. And they said, and exactly what you just said, because he authorized it. You think about that. You think that's not fair. He did, but he didn't. I mean, I know that's silly, but yeah. So he was out that much money, and his bank just felt like, and the bank say, well, we don't have anything to do with that. Yeah, it's kind of a sad story, but you really have to check on spelling and everything. So, but we know that there's a lot of types of scams that are out there. You mentioned some of them previously, IRS scams, gift cards, romance calls, scams regarding your grandchildren needing financial help in a hurry, Social Security and utility imposters. And that's just to name a few. So what are the other types of scams that people are experiencing? And can you share what types of scams that are really popular right now?
Yeah, I think everything, and Teresa, just going off your story, I'm so sorry that happened to your brother. I think what we need to do, unfortunately, is just change our whole frame of mind. We all grew up with this, trust and verify, mentality. These days, it has to be don't trust and verify. We can't start from the supposition that what's on that email or text or on your phone call is legitimate. You have to say, I don't trust this, but I'm curious. It might be legitimate, so I'm going to hang up and I'm going to verify it on my own. Before we'd say, I absolutely trust you, but to be safe, I'm just going to go ahead and verify it. That's dangerous. Like, we should never trust anything that we see. Just always assume it's fraudulent until proven otherwise, and that's really unfortunate. When speaking of kind of what we're seeing in Illinois in particular, the sort of top 2 or 3 scams last year were identity theft, imposter scams, and online shopping scams. And really, typically when we look at states, identity theft and imposter scams are kind of what you described when somebody impersonates the IRS or Amazon or something like. Usually those are kind of neck and neck. But in Illinois, identity theft there's twice as many identity theft reports as imposter scam reports. So I think I'll just focus on that because it is an important thing. And sort of here is the rub. Traditionally, when we think about how to protect yourself from identity theft, it's, don't give out your social security number, shred in sensitive documents, don't give out your Medicare and Medicaid. And those are all really important tips. But the reality is, so much of our data is out of our control. And so, like, raise your hand if you've got a notification that someone that you do business with lost your personal information in a data breach. Everybody raises their hand. And so, and that's really the flip side, is once that's out there, once the criminals have it, they don't use it right away. Because usually if you get one of those notifications, they also sign you up for credit monitoring for, 6 months or a year. So what the criminals will do is they'll just sit on that information. Your social security number is not going to change. It's going to be the same in 2 years or 5 years. And so once the time is right, then they'll use it. And that really is one of the reasons why we saw the big spike during COVID, because all of this personal information was out there. And now there was an opportunity to use it through those unemployment scams or those government benefit scams. And when those went away, they just moved on to old-fashioned things like opening credit cards in other people's names. And sure enough, in Illinois, 40% of all identity theft reports involve credit card related fraud. And Illinois actually ranks 9th out of 50 states in terms of the number of identity theft reports last year. So that's definitely something so what do we do about that? I think the first thing is just to assume that somebody has your information and you have to take steps to protect it. So number one, credit monitoring services are important. There's a lot of them out there. You can kind of figure out one that works best for you. If you're really worried, you could do a credit freeze or a credit alert, which is, puts a hold on your credit so nobody else can open something in your name. And then just what we talked about before, shredding sensitive information, having complex passwords and unique passwords, maybe using a password manager to keep track of them. All of those things are going to help. If you have the same password and login for all of the websites that you use, and a criminal gets that, then they have access to everything. And a lot of that stuff, we store our credit cards on, we have our bank login information, that sort of stuff. So password management is really important too.
So, yeah, it's just your head spins with all this stuff. It's like, and we work in fraud and still, I'm like, should I not? Is this legitimate? Is it not? So I can't imagine people that don't have access to some of the things that we do, how they prevent it. And that leads me to my next question. So since there are so many ways to get scammed, like you said before, phone, mail, emails, if you click on this, is there an easier way to spot a scam? And are there just certain things that stick out that people could be looking for?
There are, but it always sort of changes. So for instance, email scams typically would have, kind of really telltale red flags like grammatical errors, or sort of syntax or English that didn't work right,
Mhm.
or some just kind of basic spelling errors. But now with AI, there's tools like ChatGPT, and so we actually just did a show with an FBI agent a couple weeks ago, and they asked him, what is the early impact of AI that they're seeing, and he brought up
Mhm.
ChatGPT as the first example. And so
Mhm.
some of those really, people had, that was a great tool that a lot of people knew, like read your email. And if it doesn't make sense, if the English isn't right, if there's grammatical issues, then it's a scam. It's a scam. So that's one way where, hey, there's a tool that might be on its way to becoming obsolete. And so it's another example of how these criminals are always, you know, refining and upgrading what they do. I think the two most effective things you can do, Teresa, is don't answer the phone and don't click on links.
Mhm.
If you think it's a call you need to take, let it go to voicemail, and then you can listen to the voicemail and decide whether you need to call the person back. If it's a link, if it's a link to Amazon or the postal service or UPS or a sale that I might want to take advantage of, I'm safer off to go to that website on my own and look for that
Mhm.
deal, or log into my own account and see if there's an issue with my package being shipped to me. That sort of shortcut, and again, these criminals, they're master manipulators. They understand psychology. They understand that our lives are busy and we're looking for shortcuts. We're looking to ways to make things easier. And so, sure, it's a lot easier just to click that link than it is to go get on my computer, log into, Amazon, log into my account,
Mhm.
track my packages. I might want to be, I trust it. I'm just going to, but clicking on that link, kind of making that leap of faith, could be really dangerous, which is why I go back to what I said before. It's not trust and verify. It's don't trust, but verify if you think it's
Mhm.
legit.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Courtney. And let me just say this, and then I'll have Courtney go. One of the things also that I see is when you get some email, and it says "Dear customer," or it's not particularly addressed to you. That's one of the things that first alerts me as well.
Mhm.
So if it just says "Dear customer," well, if I'm your customer, why wouldn't you send it to "Dear Teresa"?
Mhm.
So those are, little telltale signs as well. But Courtney, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
you're fine. No, great. No, great. We have a Facebook question that's come in, and actually was going to be one of my questions as well. But the person asked, like, how do you identify an email scam? And I think Teresa just even led to that a little bit. But also, outside of that, they were asking, and also would love to hear this as well. I mean, obviously, no one ever wants to get their identity stolen or things happen to them, but obviously it happens. And so, what should someone do if they receive an email scam? But also, essentially, if they have been victimized in any way, shape, or form, what does someone do for reporting purposes, and who do they reach out to? It's
Yeah,
kind of a dual question.
that's fine. And reporting is so important because we're never going to get our arms around this problem if we don't truly know the scope of it. And also, especially, becoming a victim, the most, if somebody, one of the reasons that a lot of people, especially older people, become victims, one of the sort of things that makes you vulnerable is isolation. And so think about somebody who's isolated, and they, make a friend online because they want somebody to talk to, or that relationship gives them value, and then that person takes advantage of them and steals from them. How does that victim feel? Are they more or less isolated? And now, say they're afraid to tell anybody because they're
Mhm.
afraid of what their family's reaction will be, or what their friends' reaction will be.
Yeah.
And that just pushes them further into that cave of isolation, that one is not healthy for them, but two actually makes them more vulnerable, to being defrauded again. And so we always say whether you lost money or didn't lose money, it's important to share that story, because there's probably somebody else that you know and love who is being approached with that same scam, if not today, the next day. And so knowledge truly is power. It's like, it's the same thing as see something, say something. The best way to keep people safe is let them know what you're happening and going through. And also we want to support those victims. We actually have a fraud victim support group through AARP where, a few times a week, we open time for victims who are still processing what happened to them, to kind of connect with each other and help each other heal. I know we have the phone number, and that's the other thing I don't want to not talk about, is that we have a volunteer staffed victim support helpline Monday through Friday. Volunteers from all across the country take calls on this and help people out. The number is 877-908 3360. And so that's a great resource if you have been a victim, or if you have a scam that you want to report and don't know where to go or don't know how to report it. Call the helpline number and they'll get you pointed in the right direction. They'll help connect you to the resources you need.
Yeah. So Seth, can you go into a little bit more detail on the reporting piece? Like, so who would someone call immediately? Like, they think they've been victimized in any way, shape, or form. Who are they reporting to initially?
So I think the first thing is always, your local law enforcement, especially if you lose money. The FBI, the FBI. So here's where it gets complicated. Most of these criminals exist overseas, and it's not unheard of for people to call, their police or maybe even sometimes the FBI and be told, well, there's nothing we can do about it. You gave them your money. No. And so that can be demoralizing. But it also means that doesn't mean you shouldn't report. Especially there's a huge growth right now in cryptocurrency related scams. And part of it is being driven by the fact that there are these crypto ATMs kind of all over the place. In my neighborhood here in Minnesota, there's like 25 in a 5-mile radius of my house. They're in grocery stores and gas stations. And so people who don't know anything about cryptocurrency are being coached to go to the grocery store, bring $5,000 of cash to the grocery store and look for the green ATM. You scan a code and then you feed your money in. And the reason why I bring crypto is, one, for people to they know it's there. But sometimes with that cryptocurrency, if you report it fast enough, they can trace that money. There's like a digital footprint that they can trace back. That's something in particular the FBI is really focused on. And they have a pretty easy website to remember. It's called ic3.gov. ic3.gov is another place if you want to report something to the FBI. But, one of the challenges in this work is that, you have state attorney generals, you have local law enforcement, you have the FBI, and you're just like, I don't even know where to call. And that's where the Fraud Watch helpline can be helpful to get you pointed in the right direction.
Love it. This is great. Such great information. Thank you. So we've talked a whole bunch of stuff. You've given out a lot of resources, but there might be something we've missed. So can you, any other words of wisdom, advice, anything you think our viewers should know about?
I think just, I always say 3 words. Also, stop, think, and verify. And that's kind of goes back to what we talked about before. Whether you think something's legitimate or not, the most important, what the criminal wants to do is get you caught up in a narrative. Like, there was a fraudulent charge, or my grandson's in prison, or this is a can't miss deal to Chicago. They want to get you caught up in the narrative. And at that point, sometimes you get so excited or so fearful, you don't process thoughts. The safest thing you can do is just stop. Hang up the phone, walk away from the computer, then think about it. Do we think this is legitimate? And if you do it, then go verify it on your own. So stop, think, verify is 3 things that I always say. It's the best way to sort of to make sure that you're keeping yourself safe and you're not acting too quickly.
I love it. Thank you so very much. Stop, think, verify. I think we could all, if there's something to take away, stop, think, verify. I love that. I can't believe we're coming to the end of our time. Thank you, Seth, so much for sharing your insights and knowledge. We so appreciate your time and your valuable contributions that you're continuing to make in your role with the Fraud Watch Network. So thank you so very much. And to our audience, thank you for joining us for this wonderful conversation. This was our first one. And really, we are so excited about about this one and then our future monthly activities that we're going to be talking and really breaking down all the frauds and scams that I think you want to hear about, that you need to hear about. We can't wait to bring it to you. So Teresa and I are super excited to be the fraud fighting fraudlets. So this was the first of many, and we're really, again, very excited to be with you. So let's continue this dialogue. We're going to work together. We're going to get information to you. And again, join us for our next month. In May, we'll be talking all about the Better Business Bureau. And so we're really excited to be talking about all the things as it relates to them. So join us certainly for that. Once again, thank you for joining us today. We look forward to continuing our mission of supporting older adults, caregivers, and the entire aging community in Illinois and beyond. For more information regarding fraud, so we want to make sure you have all the information you need, and some of the things were already given, but I want to give it again. So for more information, you can call 877-908-3360. So that's 877-908-3360. We also have a website, aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. So again, aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. Again, looking forward to seeing all of you at our next one. If you need more information for AARP Illinois' upcoming virtual events, you can visit aarp.org/Illinois. So again, that's aarp.org/Illinois. Teresa and I want to thank you. Again, thank you, Seth. We hope you have a wonderful day. This concludes our call, and we'll see you next time. Be safe, everyone.
Stay safe.